Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of the convener, I would like to open today's agenda with a warm welcome to the participants of Online Summer School 2021 on Comparative Regionalism in a Changing World Order, hosted by Postgraduate School of Universitas Erlangga here in Surabaya, Indonesia, in collaboration with United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies in Belgium, as well as Higher School of Economics of M. Narikbayev Kazgu University in Kazakhstan. Good afternoon to those in Asia. We have participants coming in from Indonesia, Malaysia, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Thailand, Cambodia, India, and of course, many more. Good morning, perhaps, to those in Africa and in Europe. We have participants coming in from Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, the UK, Latvia, as well as Italy. And perhaps good fairly early in the morning to those in the Americas. We have participants coming in from the United States, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, and many more. And of course, finally, good evening to those in Australia. Not to mention, I would also like to welcome the distinguished guests and speakers who are already present here today in today's event. We have Professor Badri, Dr. Saule, Professor Lombard, His Excellency Pak Rahmat Pramono, Dr. Filippo, Dr. Iqbaljan, Ibu Rosa, and Paradian. I hope that we're all well and healthy, even in the midst of this paralyzing pandemic. Now, before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Arya, and I'm a student at Universitas Erlangga, and I will be acting as the host for today's event. Now, this online summer school event is definitely going to be very, very exciting. As we can see here, we have participants coming in from all around the globe. And so this event is designed and tailored as a platform for cultural exchange as well as international exposure, where participants can share their unique individual experiences they carry from all around the world. And it's definitely a perfect opportunity to expand on your networking. Next up in this event, we have an exciting series of lectures in store for you for the next few days. Not only will participants get valuable insights from notable speakers, but they will also engage in meaningful discussions on various topics surrounding comparative regionalism. Operator, boleh tolong ditunjukkan jadwalnya? All right, so today in day one, we are going to have our welcoming speeches as well as several keynote speeches, followed by two lectures from Dr. Filippo and Dr. Iqbaljan. The schedule will appear momentarily on your screens. Operator, boleh tolong jadwalnya ditunjukkan? Okay, thank you. And for the second day, we are going to have lectures again by Professor Jan Orby from Ghent University in Belgium, touching on the issue of EU development policy, as well as our very own Dr. Rosa from our very own Universitas Erlangga, delivering about comparative constitution. Day two will be closed with a workshop convened by both Dr. Filippo and Dr. Rosa as well. And the third day, we will have three lectures with very interesting topics. First is Dr. Radian on law, legal systems, and regionalism. And then in day three, the second lecture will be by Carolina Zaccato from London School of Economics and Political Science, talking about regionalism in South America. And last but not least, we will have Dr. Amandine, who will be lecturing about African security regionalism. And in day four, hari keempat. Yeah, and in day four, this is where it gets interesting because we will have time for participants to engage in discussions and to prepare for their special presentations. And in the last day, in day five, hari kelima, we will have student presentations here as well as the closing ceremony. Now, before we jump right into the main event, I would like to invite some distinguished guests here today to make opening remarks to officially kickstart this online summer school. First, I invite the Director of Postgraduate School of Universitas Airlangga, Professor Badri Sukocho. Prof. Badri, the time is yours. Silahkan, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Mas Arya. The Honorable Excellency, Dr. Rahmat Pramono, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Kazakhstan and Tajikistan, the keynote speaker, distinguished speakers, Dr. Saule Kamalbayeva, Dean of Higher School of Economics of Narikbayev Kasgu University, Professor Philippe de Lombarde, Director at Interim United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies, Belgium, Dr. Farhad Talipov, Director of Non-Governmental Research Institution, Knowledge Caravan, Uzbekistan, and also instructors, Dr. Iqbal John Karabayev from Kasgu University, Dr. Filippo Costa Buranelli from St. Andrews University, and also Dr. Rosa Ristawati from Postgraduate School Airlangga, as also Dr. Radian Salman, Vice Director, Head of Study Program, and the beloved summer school participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. The online summer school on comparative regionalism in a changing world order 2021 is the first summer school presenting global experts discussing a specific topic, regionalism. The objective is to expose participants to the field of research on comparative regionalism in global arena, the context of emerging powers and shifting political or economic balances. Today's event is the sequential event that we conduct and get support from the Ambassador of Republic of Indonesia in Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. And it is also the seventh event to implement our Memorandum of Understanding that we already signed early of this year between Airlangga University and also Kasgu University of Kazakhstan. We wish our summer school students can understand the logic of regionalism. Current debates caused, among others, by erosion of liberal international order are bringing into fore the importance of regionalism projects. Regionalism is at the center of scholarly and policy debates for many different reasons. The logic of regionalism in post-COVID-19 global order necessitates an in-depth comparative approach which sees regionalism as a lasting feature of world order. By understanding that, we can follow by realizing the potential of Greater Asia as the next economic locomotive growth, as well as each country for the betterment of society, not only for economy, but also social, political, and laws. Similar logic also can be applied to Africa, Europe, North and South America, as well as Australia. Last but not least, this is another stepping stone event for our collaboration with Kasgu University, United Nations University Institute of Comparative Regional Integration Studies in Belgium. Currently, there are 100 registered participants, and we select 75 participants from 27 countries to participate in this summer school. With the support of the ambassador, we can create future events such as winter school with multidisciplinary issues about ASEAN or European Union or other regional institutions, particularly for the world order post-COVID-19. So please give big applause to all the honorable speakers, instructors, conveners, as well as all of the participants, particularly to our International Partnership Unit and Vice Director of Postgraduate School who make this event happen successfully. Thank you and have a wonderful, enjoyable, and insightful summer school. And hopefully after post-COVID, you can join our summer school physically to Airlangga University and Surabaya. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Badri, for that very wonderful and heartwarming speech. Next up, we have Dr. Saule Kamalbayeva as the Dean of Higher School of Economics of M. Narikbayev, Kasgu University, to deliver her welcoming speech. Unfortunately, due to her circumstances, she will not be able to attend today's event, but nevertheless has prepared a special video to greet us. Operator, the time is yours.
Dear summer school participants, it's a great honor for the High School of Economics at Narikbaev Kazgil University, Kazakhstan, to co-organize and co-host this amazing event, bringing together prominent academics, scholars, and students from all around the world. For us, this is the first such experience because we just recently launched our new program, International Relations, and therefore we especially appreciate this unique opportunity for our brand new IR students to emerge in the atmosphere of the summer school. We hope for the future cooperation and endeavors, and I wish the participants a very fruitful week full of achievements, ideas, positive emotions, new mates and friends. Good luck.
That was Dr. Saleh. Thank you, Dr. Saleh. Next, I would like to welcome Professor Philippe de Lombard as the Director of United Nations University Institute of Comparative Regional Integration Studies in Belgium. Professor Lombard, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon and good morning to all of you. I prepared a short PowerPoint, so I will share my screen if possible, if you allow me. Okay, can you all hear me? Can you all see me? Okay, thank you very much. I will. Okay, here we are. Well, thanks again for the invitation to partner with you, and so thanks to the host university, first of all, Airlanga University, for this wonderful initiative. Also, thanks to Kazgu University for collaborating in this initiative. Special thanks to the conveners of today, so Dr. Ristawati, Dr. Koraboyev and Dr. Costa Buranelli. So thank you very much for taking this initiative. We as UNU CRIS, we are very happy to partner with you because, as you probably know, the mandate of UNU CRIS is exactly to study, to analyze regionalism worldwide, regionalism as it takes place in different parts of the world, to promote regionalism studies all over the world, to do research, to organize capacity building on the regionalism, regional governance, multi-level governance, regional integration, and so on. So we are very happy with this initiative, and I'm very glad to see that there are students from I think more than 25 countries all over the world. So it's so I would already like to congratulate you for this initiative and the success of this call. I prepared a short presentation to share with you a few ideas about comparative regionalism to set the scene, so to speak. And so let me move to my first slide. The first thing I think which I should not explain is the relevance of the topic of comparative regionalism. It is a very timely topic. It is a very relevant topic, not only from an academic perspective, but also from a more political and societal perspective. You see a few pictures there. You will recognize some of these, let's say, events or situations in different parts of the world. You see pictures about ASEAN and the connection with the developments in Myanmar. You see people protesting for the EU-Mercosur agreement. You see Australians protesting against the Belt and Road Initiative. You see people protesting against the wall between the United States and Mexico. And you see, of course, references to the Brexit. So what you see there is that people, citizens, are aware of the importance of regionalism, regional governance. Obviously, in some cases, people want apparently less regionalism or less regionalism of a particular kind, and they want a different kind of regionalism, different regional policies. In other cases, they want clearly more of this, more connections between countries, better regulations, a more active regional organization, and so on. So what we see here is, in any case, an understanding, a growing understanding, I would say, of the importance of this regional level of governance within the context of multi-level governance, which is de facto what we have in this world. We have a world, when you look at it from the perspective of citizens, and you look at the number of policy areas where you see that, in effect, you have a combination there of local authorities designing policies, taking measures, adjusting to situations, reacting to challenges, local levels, regional levels, at the sub-national level, the supranational level, and then the global level. And you have this interaction, and of course the challenges of governance taking place and policies being designed at different levels. Now, when you move to the more academic study of regionalism, the first question then is, of course, okay, what are we actually studying? And what is on our radar? And what this is, of course, not, there is no unique answer to this question. It depends a lot on the research questions that we are asking ourselves. Our radar can be, let's say, broader, narrower in scope. The object of study can be more focused, broader. We can include, or we can focus, for example, on the institutionalized versions of regionalism, for example, the regional organizations, and there are already a few that have been mentioned before, ASEAN, the European Union, Mercosur, and so on. Or we can have a broader scope and also look at more informal expressions of regionalism, for example, in border regions, in collaboration between neighboring countries. We can look at cultural regions defined by a cultural identity. We can look at economic complexes where the region is defined by economic interactions and so on. So what is on our radar can be broader, narrower. That depends on us. That depends on the relevant, let's say, population of objects that we define for a particular research question that we want to answer. Now, comparative regionalism is approached from a number of disciplines, as you know, from political science, international relations. In economics, in the economics discipline, we are studying regions and regional integration, but also the geographers study regions, people in area studies, by definition, study a particular region, and so on. And so we know that from these different disciplinary angles, we study regions. But comparative regionalism is at the same time also a research program per se. Comparative regionalism is a research program in the sense of, let's say, the philosophy of science, where you have a research community, which is still growing, a research community of people with different disciplinary backgrounds, but coming together and studying or sharing concerns and a research object, even if this research object is not unique and can change over time, but there is some idea of what our research object is. There is a theoretical core. There are a number of theoretical ideas that most of us will share. There is a program dynamics. It's an evolving research program, but there is a research program. And this summer school, in a way, is part of this. It's one of those elements that constitute, together with other initiatives and other scholarly work, this research program. So we are all part of this, even if this research program and our individual research programs might be, or in most cases are, overlapping with other research programs. Comparative regionalism is overlapping with, for example, comparative politics. It is overlapping with international trade theory. It is overlapping with globalization studies. It is overlapping with multi-level governance study, and so on. So it is an overlapping research program, but it has its own identity at the same time. It is also a research program that is sometimes being questioned. Some people say, well, comparative regionalism is characterized by a lack of conceptual clarity, and then you have these discussions going on about concepts, and they are still going on. That is true. There is a discussion going on, and already a very old discussion about, okay, but what is our dependent variable? What are we actually trying to explain? And there is no consensus about this. It is also a research program that has been questioned and criticized because it is perceived, but not only perceived, it has also been effectively the case, perceived as Eurocentric, because, among other things, because historically this community has been very much centered around the European case for historical reasons. Also, the European institutions have been promoting at different instances a model of integration. So this is a characteristic of this research program that we cannot deny, but I have the impression that we are, let's say, little by little leaving this behind, and that we, let's say, have a much broader view of regionalism, that we are aware of the particularities of expressions of regionalism in different contexts, and that we do not necessarily need this model, if there is a model, to do our work. What we compare and the cases we compare can be varied and depend again on the research questions that we are asking. I will not say much about theories because there is I think your first lecture that is coming up after these initial interventions is exactly about theories. It's about theoretical frameworks, so I will not go into details here. I would only like to indeed mention that we have this theoretical framework. We have a number of theories, not necessarily very hard theories, but at least theorizing that can help us to structure our ideas, and then to come up with our own, let's say, design for our new research and our own research project. So we can rely on a number of things that are already there, not necessarily to then pick the right theoretical framework, but at least to, in an eclectic way, to use what is useful. These theories, especially the older theories, have very often been designed to study particular cases, but in many cases, these theories are sufficiently abstract at the same time to be relevant to study other cases. Yeah? So it is up to us to evaluate these theories, these theoretical frameworks, and to combine the elements that are useful in an eclectic way. There is nothing negative about being eclectic, on the contrary. What is important, though, I think, is to try to cross the disciplinary boundaries. There is, I mean, I would say probably the core of what has been produced is in what you could call political science, IR. There is also a very important production in economics. It is important to cross these boundaries and to see what has been produced in different disciplinary environments, but essentially studying the same objects of study, our regions, our regional integration processes. Not all these theoretical frameworks are by definition or have by definition a comparative element in it. But even the older theories that have been developed after the Second World War have in some cases, for example, if you look at the neo-functionalist literature, have already this comparative element in it. And in the very early writings in neo-functionalism, for example, you have already this ambition to try to come up with a more general theory. And if you want to have a more general theory about regionalism or region integration, you have to look at different cases. And so from the beginning, there was this ambition to do this, and there have been empirical studies covering Europe, the Americas, Africa, for example, or the sub-regions. So you already find it there in that literature, this theoretical ambition on the one hand, and then the organization of empirical studies comparing regions on the other hand. Also in other, let's say, literatures or areas of research areas like security studies and systems theory, you find this comparative work already about regional complexes, how regional security complexes are being formed and how they behave in the broader context of the global polity. Also in economics, you have the early developments in customs union theory, for example, where you also find very early on comparisons of how these free trade areas or customs unions behave and what their effects are across regions. More recently, you have the new regionalist school that has, I would say, revived the thinking about regions, and of which UNICRIS has also been part. I think the new regionalism has been important for a number of reasons, but I would say especially at the methodological level. We have become aware of the multiplicity of actors that are active at the regional level, and we have started to see regionalism as a much more complex phenomenon, which has a number of aspects to it, which has formal expressions, but also more informal realities that form part of this regional phenomenon. New regionalism has this, at the same time, this ambiguity with respect to comparability across regions. On the one hand, the new regionalists will say we should look beyond the EU, we should look at regionalism worldwide, and etc., etc. So there is this let's say this ambition to look at different cases of regionalism globally, not necessarily, and that is a very good evolution, not necessarily looking at the EU as a benchmark, but at the same time, as new regionalists are emphasizing the importance of context and regional context, at the same time, there is also the message that comparability is not necessarily given. Comparability depends. Cases are comparable depending on the questions that you are asking. So there is some ambiguity there, but I would say in general, new regionalists have, let's say, changed our view on the regions and especially the multiplicity of aspects to regionalism. Just a few words about where this research program is heading to. As any academic area, this is obviously under constant discussion and debate, and that is how it should be. Some people have suggested that perhaps time has come for regionalism study to be mainstreamed, meaning that they are questioning the need to have this research program as a separate research program, but would, let's say, they suggest to reconnect this research program with, let's say, IR studies, for example, more in general, whereas others, and I am probably one of those others, think that indeed this research program is still very valid, because it is of course connected to other debates and other approaches that are broader in scope, but there are specific issues that require a specific research program. This challenge of cross-border governance is very specific and requires a specific research program. Also, the fact that when you look at the regions and the institutionalized regions, the fact that you have this important heterogeneity of cases. Regions, when you compare regions and regional organizations, they are quite different, one compared to the other. This is much less the case when you look at the national governance level or even the subnational governance level. You find municipalities, you find cities with certain characteristics all over the world. You find national governments with their national parliaments, etc., all over the world. But when you look at the regional level, in the supranational sense, there is much more heterogeneity, and that already by itself requires a specific attention to this regional, supranational, regional level of governance. What is also needed, I think, and this is what I was referring to when I showed you the pictures in the beginning also, is the need for what I formulate here as remaking the case for regional cooperation and integration. For some people, especially when you look at Brexit, for example, but you also see calls in other countries or questionings of these regional organizations. For some people, regionalism is perhaps it's exaggerating now, but is a historically failed project. So for some people, beyond the national policy level, and we do not need these regional constructions. At the same time, we see that in many policy areas, the challenges that we are facing are typically cross-border. When you look at yesterday it was the day of refugees, but you look at migration more in general and refugees. If you look at the environment, if you look at epidemics, pandemics, as we have, or we are living currently, we can observe that many of these challenges are indeed cross-border, are transnational, and require responses, not only national responses, but these are inadequate, but they also need regional coordination, and very often they need regional responses, regional policies. So I think the task of the academic community is also to remake that case for regional cooperation and integration, in a more academic way, in a more, I would almost say scientific way, but in a more academic way, to prepare good arguments and say, well, regional cooperation is needed in these and these conditions, in these and these policy areas, because the national level, the local level is not able to cope with these. So I think by looking at best practices sometimes, or failures of national policies and so on, and in some cases trying to quantify potential benefits or costs of particular solutions, I think we can contribute to this, to the debate, the more political debate then on regional cooperation and integration. I think I will stop here for the sake of time, not without inviting you to have a look at our website for those interested in these topics. Especially for the students, I would like to draw your attention also to the second link you see there, which is the link to RICS, which is the Regional Integration Knowledge System, which is an information platform that we have been building with both qualitative and quantitative information on regional organizations. So please have a look at these if you are in need of systematic data on these topics. So that's the end of my short intervention. So thank you very much again to the organizers and the organizing institutions. I wish you all the best with your summer school, and without any doubt it will be an enriching experience. So thanks again, and I would say over to Dr. Tolipov, I think, for his keynote speech. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Lombard, for that very elaborate and very interesting keynote session. But before we jump into the next keynote session, I would like to invite His Excellency Pak Rahmat Pramono. He is the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia for Kazakhstan and Tajikistan for a few words. Your Excellency, the time is yours.
Oke. Terima kasih Mas Arya. Yang terhormat Bapak Profesor Badri Munir Sukoco, Director of Postgraduate School, University of Airlangga, Indonesia. Honorable Dr. Saule Kemal Bayeva, Dean of Higher Schools of Narikbayev Kasgu University in Kazakhstan. Distinguished speakers, participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon to you all. I'm honored and privileged to be given the opportunity to deliver welcoming remarks on the opening of the International Online Summer School on Comparative Regionalism in a Changing World Order, an activity jointly organized by University of Airlangga and Narikbayev Kasgu University in Kazakhstan, as well as the United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies in Belgium. I shall express my profound appreciation to the University of Airlangga for their dedication and continuous effort in promoting higher education in Indonesia and in providing its quality world-class university that not only excel in teaching and research, but also has a broad network of international partnership. I follow the progress of cooperation between University of Airlangga and Kasgu universities since they signed the MOU of academic cooperation in January this year. And I'm pleased to note that the said MOU has been implemented very actively. In the past 6 months, despite the pandemic, both universities have conducted several international conferences, joint research, and now a summer school which brings together eminent speakers and scholars from the 2 universities and also from other universities in Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Belgium, Uzbekistan, UK, Tajik, Kyrgyz, as well as other countries. This is a commendable initiative that hopefully will encourage further academic interaction, scholarly exchange, and intellectual discussion among universities from different parts of the world. Regionalism is a broad subject of discussion in international relations. Cooperation among states, especially with the neighboring countries in the same region whom they share proximities with regard of geography, cultural identity, or historical background, is a natural and inevitable terms of national interest. This is the reason why Indonesia, ASEAN is perceived as the first concentric circle that always been given a special attention and priority in our foreign policy. Globalization creates both opportunity and challenges and touch each person individually, directly or indirectly. As the current global pandemic of COVID-19 undoubtedly shows us, the world faces more and more transboundary issues that cannot be addressed by a sole country. All members of international communities share responsibilities for the global issues. They could either contribute in addressing the problems or worsening the problems. In pursuing a national interest or common agenda, building international coalition and cooperation most of the times become a necessity, be it bilaterally, regionally, or at the multilateral level. In the complex setting of international relations, which feature not only state but also non-state action, regional platforms gain importance as the main complementing or alternative platform to advocate various global agenda. Regionalism and regional integration are common and growing phenomenon that we'll find in a different part of the world. From my experience and observation, regionalism is not monodirectional and recognizes not just a single form. The study of regionalism, however, are still dominated by Western perspective and studies of the Western model of regionalism, as also mentioned earlier by Professor De Lombardi. This 5 days intensive summer course, therefore, become an interesting and important as it gives opportunity for expert researchers and students of international relations from different nations to learn different models of regionalism and share their views on the topic of regionalism from different perspectives and multi-dimensional approaches. Such intellectual conversation would not only enrich the discussion in the academic communities, but also could have an impact in the actual work of diplomacy and international relations by helping the actors involved understand more extensively on the issue that they are dealing with. Once again, congratulations to University of Airlangga and their partners, KASGU and University and UNUCRIS for organizing this joint summer course. I believe this activity will give every participant an invaluable experience. I wish this activity a success, and I would very much welcome other initiatives and collaboration from the University of Airlangga in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. We are very honored also to have you here with us today. Now, if you caught up with the two videos we played at the very beginning of this event, those videos actually tell us about the history of our university, Universitas Airlangga, which has started even before Indonesia has gained its independence. Our vision of quality education is a long-standing journey which have begun since almost 80 years ago. Now, for a proper Indonesian welcome, we would like to play a special video for the participants here of a traditional dance from Banyuwangi, which is a city located in the easternmost part of the Java Island called the Gandrung Dance. Enjoy the video. Operator.
Salam penghormatan Solo Wajon. Tadi suarane awak wajon. Selamat kabeh awak lima wajah.
Thank you. So that particular dance is called the Gandrung dance. So the Gandrung dance derives its name from the Javanese word for love. It is theorized that the dance originated as a ritual dance to express the people's affection for the rice goddess called Dewi Sri. But now the dance itself has evolved into more of a social dance, describing a girl looking for love companions. It is also most popularly performed as a form of courtship to welcome guests. And so we deem it appropriate to play the video here to show you how thrilled we are to welcome all of you to this online summer school. As known, Indonesians are very warm and hospitable people, and we hope that next year the pandemic will finally be over and perhaps the next summer school will be held in person, where all of you can visit Indonesia and witness how beautiful our country is. But no worries, because even though we're only gathered online, we are still connected to each other, and that's the beauty of this pandemic. That's its silver lining. Now, before we go further, I would like to ask all the speakers, distinguished guests, as well as the participants here to turn on their video cameras as we are going to do a photo session together. Would you please turn on your video cameras? Operator boleh dipimpin.
Okay, stand by on camera. 1, 2, 3 for slide 1. Next for slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Next for slide 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Operator. So next up, we are going to just dive right into the next agenda, which is the second keynote session. This time, I would like to invite Dr. Farkad Tolipov as the Director for Non-Governmental Research Institution, Knowledge Caravan from Uzbekistan to deliver the second keynote speech of the day. Doctor, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, because it's afternoon in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan right now. I'm very happy to be here to join this summer school, and thank you for inviting me to give a keynote speech. Because I am from Central Asia, I am from Uzbekistan, the Central Asian country. Probably I will be more focused on my own region, Central Asia, with some, of course, elements of comparison of Central Asia with other regions as well. So let me share the screen, just a moment. So you see the screen, right?
Yes.
I would like to switch the regime F5, just a moment. Something is happening. Anyway, I guess I should correct the, just a moment. Well, F5. Oh, yes. Sorry for some technical issue. So my topic today is region being and region building in Central Asia, which is about how Central Asia lives, what we mean by Central Asia, what kind of region it is. This is the first part of the speech, region being, and how Central Asia as a region is being developed, how it fits the modern requirements of the 21st century in terms of how regions should be developed and for which reasons, what should be the ultimate goals of any regions in the world, in particular in Central Asia. So region building in Central Asia is all about the perspectives, how Central Asia is developing. So a region being is about what we have today. What is Central Asia today? Well, this is Central Asia. Most of you, of course, know the geographical location of Central Asia. It is surrounded by great powers such as Russia and China, and the rising powers, regional powers such as India, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey. To the south, we also have turbulent Afghanistan. Well, the surroundings of this region, geographical surroundings, is very special. This very fact of surroundings, I think, distinguishes Central Asia as a region. It's neither, or better to say, it cannot be associated with great powers such as China or Russia, because Russia and China are self-sufficient great powers, and Central Asia can hardly be considered as the part of these great powers. So this simplest fact itself tells us about self-value, let's say, of the region. So Central Asia as a region consists of 5 countries: Kazakhstan by alphabetical sequence, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and my country, Uzbekistan. Well, we call them 5 stands because all the names ends with the suffix stand. Why this is a region and how this region can be distinguished from other regions, and what is the future, the main trend of development of Central Asia. By paraphrasing the famous American scholar, Professor Martha Olcott, who used the very special expression of catapult to independence to describe how on the place of the former Soviet Union, 15 independent republics suddenly appeared on the world scale. In the international system, I would use another similar phrase, catapult to regionalism, by maybe equalizing this, symbolically equalizing independence to regionalism. So catapult to regionalism. For 5 Central Asian Central Asian countries, independence, which they got after the collapse of the Soviet Union, brought with it not only just the challenge of independent development, but also challenge of regionalism, challenge of living and developing as a region, as the group of 5 countries. So Central Asia, so the group of 5 stands, actually is a relatively new region in terms of modern theory of international relations, modern theory of regionalism, theory of integration. Because, well, just in this form, in this shape of 5 countries, it emerged right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But in terms of, organic history, it is probably one of the most ancient regions of the world. You guys, you colleagues probably know about the famous ancient Great Silk Road. And Central Asia was just at the epicenter, at the center of this ancient Great Silk Road. So in this sense, I say that probably Central Asia is one of the most ancient regions of the world. So, but in modern sense, it is relatively new. So combination of these, relative new challenges and ancient peculiarities of this region probably defines the future, path of regionalism in Central Asia. Right after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the proclamation of the region in 1991, 5 Central Asian countries, announced that they immediately launch the regional integration project. So they didn't just limit themselves to the tasks of independent development as newly independent states, but also they proclaimed Turkestan is our common home project. Because before the Soviet Union, the region was symbolically called Turkestan, or the most part of the region was called Turkestan. Again, the stan. Well, Turkestan is our common home. The idea which reflects the commonality, the existence of community in this region. So this very fact that right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, since 1991, again, I repeat, 5 Central Asian countries didn't limit themselves to independent development as newly independent states, but also, identified themselves as part of the common region. Well, this very fact also tells us about a very special feature of the region, which I call integration by default. So it was so natural, it was so by default that just in a few days after the announcement that Soviet Union no longer existed in December 1991, in few days, 5 Central Asian countries immediately proclaimed their own integration project. That's why I call this phenomenon integration by default. This process of regionalism and regional integration in Central Asia was not so smooth. It was with its own ups and downs. It was a very complicated process. Well, it has its own chronology. I myself distinguish three major stages of in this chronology. First stage, first period of regionalism and regional integration covered 1991 till 2005, about 15 years of very successful movement towards full integration. This period even replicated, to my mind, replicated the integration on the model of European Union. Most of the features, most of the elements and institutional steps of integration within this 15 years period replicated the EU model. Well, for some geopolitical reasons, integration process was suspended, I say frozen, since 2006 until 2016. So it lasted, this frozen condition lasted 10 years. And when the government, the president changed in Uzbekistan, the central country of the region in Uzbekistan, he proclaimed Central Asia to be the priority of the foreign policy of Uzbekistan and initiated a new process of regionalism, new regional integration format, which is called until today a so-called consultative meetings of presidents of Central Asian states. So since 2017 up to now, we are witnessing a new, new wave of regionalism, new wave of integration in Central Asia. So far manifested itself in the format of consultative meetings. Well, theoretically, the question about defining of the region is very important and interesting in the Central Asian context. As you colleagues know, in the IR theory, mostly three approaches, three schools of thinking predominate when it comes to any international issues, topics, be it regionalism, integration, or conflicts, or geopolitics, or whatever. So realist, I mean realist, liberal, constructivist approaches to Central Asian studies. And when we look at realism school, we probably should understand this school as in the following way. The realists say the region, be it Central Asia or elsewhere in the world, by the way, the region is a geopolitical entity. So realists approach to Central Asia through the prism of geopolitical games, great power politics, balance of power, interest game, interest conflicts, and so on and so on. Liberal approach to Central Asian studies claims that this region, the region of Central Asia, is a community of brethren. By the way, I forgot to tell you, colleagues, that Central Asian countries, all of them are brethren. Most of them, 4 countries out of 5, belong to the so-called Turkic family of nations. And one of them, Tajikistan, is a Persian-speaking, Farsi-speaking nation. So anyway, most of the population of Central Asia belong to the same family of nation. They are brethren. So this is the liberal approach. Brethren feature of these nations predominate, or I would say predetermine the future integration process. According to constructivists, I joke the maybe central question which constructivists like to pose about the existence of the region. With my conversations and discussions with colleagues from constructivist school of thinking, I deduce that most of them doubt that this is a true region. They would very often question the this shape, 5-country shape of Central Asia. and they proposed some other approaches based on, perceptions, interpretations of events by attaching Central Asia to bigger regions, macro regions, or just fragmenting it by doubting that the region of Central Asia doesn't exist at all. So anyway, whatever the approach, we may say that depending on the school of thinking about the Central Asian region, and I'm sure about any other region of the world, we can, see different perspectives of the regionalism in a certain part of the world. Coming back to Central Asia, Central Asian studies, let me mention one important, aspect of scholarship. Throughout almost 30 years of independence, since 1991 until today, a bulk of literature was created on Central Asia. Many scholars from many countries of the world, from the United States, Canada, Europe, to Eurasia, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Central Asian countries themselves, China, Japan, Korea, published, thousands of articles, hundreds of books, textbooks on Central Asia. And the dynamics, or how to say, the sequence of publications on Central Asia, this is my observation, also is symptomatic and illustrative of how scholars of the world study this region, Central Asia. So the first series of books on Central Asia was published by a Sharpe publisher in the United States. You see these multi-volume publications under one single title, Central Asia, and each volume was devoted to very special topic, be it geopolitics or economic development or challenges of transition and so on. Well, in most cases, authors who wrote articles and books on Central Asia were focused on geopolitical dimension, and they were so concentrated on great game played by great powers in Central Asia. And they distinguished such great powers as the United States, Russia, and China, who supposedly play a new version of the great game in Central Asia. And many books and articles were written, published on geopolitical games, on geopolitical transformation of the region of Central Asia. So I just show you some titles of books written by prominent international scholars studying Central Asia. And you see from this titles that Central Asia was so attractive mostly from the viewpoint of its natural resources and geopolitical ambitions of great powers. Look at this title, The New Geopolitics of Central Asia and its Borderlands. Let me give you one quote from this book, which also is illustrative how international scholars who studied Central Asia saw and see today this region. Ali Banu Azizi and Miron Wiener, who published this book, or who were the editors of this book on geopolitics in Central Asia, stated in that book that the way in which each republic defines its own identity separately from or in common with one more of its neighbors or its coethics in the neighboring countries is likely to have significant ramifications for the geopolitics of the entire region. So this quotation is quite strong and how to say, reflects the prevalence of geopolitical approach, which is actually the realist approach to Central Asia. It means that Central Asia was considered by many as the target, as the object of geopolitical competition of great powers. You see this title. Also, this is the very recent publication, the book written by Alexander Cooley, the American scholar, Great Game, Local Rules. So titles themselves are very telling, really, and also reflect the geopolitical approach, realist approach to Central Asia. Martha Olcott, whom I quoted above, also published the book Central Asia's Second Chance on the transformation, political transformation, democratic challenge which Central Asian countries are facing. And she also expressed some skeptical views about democratic perspective of Central Asians, because Central Asian countries are ruled by authoritarian rulers. And step by step, some countries devoted special publications on interests of their own countries in this region. For instance, India and Central Asia. You can also find some books about Turkey and Central Asia, Russia and Central Asia, and China and Central Asia, which I am inclined to consider as the second wave of publications of studying Central Asia. Studying Central Asia through the prism of concrete interests of concrete countries, be it India, Russia, or China, or United States, or Japan, whoever. So this is a symbolical example of this second wave of publications. In the Track of Tamerlan, the book published by edited by two American scholars, Daniel Burkhardt and Teresa Saboni, Health Central Asia's Path to the 21st Century, is about different challenges: security, geopolitical, economic, democratic transformation challenges of Central Asian countries. Well, this is just a few examples which I would like to show you and to demonstrate how international scholars studied Central Asia and Central Asian regionalism. So it's a very rich set of books and articles. But to my mind, most of these kind of publications, books and articles still lack some deeper theoretical approach to this region, to regionalism, Central Asia, to integration perspective of Central Asia. So in this sense, I would like just briefly propose some, my own theoretical views on how Central Asia can be studied further as a region. So let's discuss what I call dualisms of Central Asian countries, Central Asian nations. Central Asians can be described from dualist perspective, meaning that nations, countries which live in this region, which populate this region, are developing within such a dualist picture as geographical dualism, upstream downstream dualism, nomadic sedentary dualism, Turkic Persian dualism, Tashkent Astana means Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan dualism, democracy autocracy dualism, and international integration versus internal integration versus external integration dualism. All these dualisms are quite specific and reflect special features of Central Asian nations. Because I have limited time, I cannot deepen into each dualism which characterize the life and development, evolution of nations and countries of Central Asia. Let me just briefly take one or a couple of dualisms from this list. For instance, upstream, downstream dualism. 2 of 5 Central Asian countries are located on the upstream of 2 main rivers of Central Asia, Amul Darya and Sirdarya. And 3 of the rest 3 Central Asian countries are located on the downstream of these main rivers. So such a, seeming division of the region into these two major parts, upstream and downstream, can be considered as divisive because two upstream countries have special interest in the sphere of water management, water flow, and they use water of these 2 rivers for energy purposes. So 3 downstream countries use water for agricultural purposes. So these 2 strategies, energy strategy and agricultural strategy, create contradictions of these upstream, downstream countries and create barriers for their unification. So such a dualism is rather divisive and conflictual than uniting principle. So the scholars who look at this dualism argue that the region of Central Asia, because of such a division, cannot be united. So integration process is doomed. And well, we cannot consider Central Asia as united because of such a division. Or take, for instance, Turkic-Persian dualism. As I said above, 4 Central Asian countries are Turkic: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. Tajikistan is Persian by origin. So such an ethnic division, ethnic dualism, according to some observers and scholars, is also a divisive feature of the region. And if even Central Asian countries can unite, this unification or integration project can be successful only for or within the Turkic family, for Turkic nations. And Persian Tajikistan will not join this integration process because it's different and also because it is minority. But deeper analysis of all these dualisms, be it geographical, upstream, downstream, Turkic-Persian, and other dualisms, which at first glance look at divisive features, factors of the regional life, actually can be reconsidered as unifying factors, actually. All these dualisms can be considered as factors of integration. Well, we can discuss this later if some questions will be posed. Anyway, this is also, I mean, by demonstrating these dualisms, I would like just to say that much depends on our vision, on our prism, let's say, through which we consider Central Asia. And this dualism, the list of dualisms, is also important to take into account for our theoretical considerations. Also, another important issue for those who study Central Asia is modeling. Many today now, raise the question about applicability of some existing models of regionalism, whether Central Asians can replicate European model, European Union model, or ASEAN model of the Southeast Asian nations, or whether Central Asia is a Eurasian, part of Eurasia, and can be the part of Eurasian regionalism, whether Mercosur model is applicable for Central Asia. One Belt, One Road, Chinese initiative, is another tourism, through which Central Asia is considered as the part of the China-dominated regional initiative. And finally, CACO, Central Asian Cooperation Organization, a model which is unique, which is self-valued, self-sufficient, and none of the above mentioned model is applicable, and Central Asia can develop on its own model of regionalism and regional integration. So we also do not have a consensus. I mean, scholars and even political circles do not have consensus about the model of Central Asian regionalism, and there are different people who differently consider the modeling issue for Central Asia. But nevertheless, I'm coming to an end. Look at I would like to show you two quotations from presidents. Kazakhstan President Nursultan Nazarbayev in the onset of regionalism, regional integration of Central Asia in 1990s, said that the best option for Central Asia would be the union of Central Asian states. He said, we are destined to create it. We have 55 million population. Actually, it was 1990s, 55. We have today in the region more than 60 million. Anyway, no language barrier. We have mutually complementary economies, common space, transport and energy ties. This region can fully satisfy its needs in food, energy, and etc. Even the market can be self-sufficient. The question is, what else do we need? And another quotation from the first president of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov. He said, this was said in 1997, actually, this integration in Central Asia has always been popular in its essence. Let's note that integration of peoples of Central Asia is not a dream or a project of the future. It is a reality. It's a given, which just needs modern organizational and political forms. So from these two quotations, we can see that the leaders of Central Asian states, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, from the beginning, recognized and acknowledged the value of regionalism, regional integration in Central Asia, and declared that they were, and they are today, moving towards the full unification of 5 Central Asian countries. But look at this, spaghetti-like picture, which reflects that bigger, major, great powers of the world, or mid-ranking powers, regional powers, all have their own interest in Central Asia. So 5 Central Asian countries are targeted in one way or another by different powers of the world, and such kind of spaghetti, environment in which Central Asia is evolving today also affects the modality of regional affairs among and between Central Asian countries. From this picture, some observers and scholars conclude that this region is really, deformed. Some countries of the region probably are, leaned towards one great power. For instance, they may say Kazakhstan is leaned towards Russia. Well, Kyrgyzstan falls into dependence, and together with Tajikistan, dependence on China. Uzbekistan in 1990s and early 2000s was rather more pro-Western, and so on. Such inclination of Central Asian countries can, impede regional unification, regional integration of all of them, of all 5 Central Asian countries. But actually, the situation is much more complicated. such a stereotype that one country is, let's say, pro-Russian or pro-Chinese or pro-American or pro-Western is a deviation from reality. Actually, Central Asian countries are tied together very strongly. And anyway, this picture just to demonstrate that there are different prisms, different approaches to Central Asia, and many scholars, discuss this pro and anti, movements or behavior of Central Asian countries, which in turn can create some problems for their own regional unification. But meanwhile, let me remember that, interestingly, regionalism in Central Asia was highly recognized by many countries of the world, starting from Japan, then South Korea, United States, Russia, China, India, Turkey. Interestingly, all of them have advanced their own so-called C5+1 strategy, which means that 5 Central Asian countries plus 1 external country such as Japan or India or United States, etc. So C5+1 is a common designation for which demonstrates the strategies of these countries with respect to Central Asia. It means that in one way or another, all major powers of the world do recognize regionalism in Central Asia and work out their own strategy with respect to this region, taking into account the explicit or implicit regionalism in this region. I will skip some slides here because my time is almost over. I would like just briefly say that many international organizations, besides major powers themselves, also advance their own regional projects. CIS, which is Commonwealth of Independent States, Eurasian Economic Union, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, NATO, OSCE, and many others also have regional projects. I call this phenomenon market of security services. They propose security assistance, security help in Central Asia. Well, today, the dominant view of the region is whether there is a competition between the United States and Russia in the region, and who, again, as I said above, which country is inclined towards which great power. And let me mention one of the recent publications. Peter Frankopan from Oxford University published the book The Silk Roads in plural, and this is very comprehensive description of the history of the Silk Road, in which the author Peter Frankopan said, we are witnessing nowadays birth pains of the region that once dominated in intellectual, cultural, and economic terms, and now is reborn. We see how the center of gravity of the world is shifting to the area where it was thousands of years ago. And that area was the center of the ancient Great Silk Road, which is Central Asia. Taking this quotation, I raise the question, how will the international relations theory respond to such a view that Central Asia now is rising again, becomes a region, self-sufficient, self-asserting region, the center of the modern Great Silk Road, and how, from the IR perspective, from regionalism theory perspective, can we describe the overall processes unfolding in Central Asia. So in this sense, we are facing a so-called theoretical conundrum. Again, just very briefly and quickly, regionalism is recognized in 1991. During the then American President Bush visit in May 2002 to Russia, both rivals, United States and Russia, stated that Central Asia no longer is regarded as the area of conflict, but the cooperation, and there is no need to repeat the great game, a geopolitical great game. As I said, Central Asian cooperation was frozen in 2006 because of Russia's sudden membership in the Central Asian Cooperation Organization. Again, this is a geopolitical factor. Regional integration was revitalized in 2018. This is again a natural, restoration of the process. So Central Asian countries, all of them, look at the international relations system mostly from the realist point of view. A state-centric, anarchic, arena of great power rivalry, balance of power system, and accordingly construct their behavior in the international system. Today, Central Asian countries are hesitating between two models: Eurasian Economic Union, Russia-led structure, and their own regional Central Asian structure. So the question today, actual question today for them is whether Central Asia will be a Eurasian region, part of the bigger Eurasian regionalism, or region of its own. Thank you very much.